Well, I remember when I was there as chief, the housing developments posed a problem for us in terms of violent crime.
Sharing solutions, what Atlanta thinks a Crescent City can do to break the cycle of poverty.
Tonight, a city that's now the home to many Katrina evacuees says New Orleans can learn a lot from it.
Glenn Boyd went to Atlanta to see how it took down old public housing and turned lives around.
Mike and Liz, the city of Atlanta continues to tear down old public housing developments. And from what I learned, Atlanta is far ahead of New Orleans in taking the poorest of the poor and moving them into mainstream America.
A championship golf course, swimming pool, a playground, and a security gate. This is the East Lake Meadows housing development in Atlanta.
I didn't believe when I first saw it. When I saw that property, the East Lake, if someone would have told me that that was a majority African-American community, I'd have said, you're lying.
Well, you know, and isn't that a shame?
It's a shame.
Renee Glover is the CEO and president of Atlanta's Housing Authority.
Oftentimes, our critics will say, well, African-American people are not living there. And to the contrary, we actually have more African-American people living there, except the difference is that you have families at all of the different economic levels.
Under Glover's leadership, Atlanta is now the model for public housing in America. Some in New Orleans are fighting to save the very buildings Glover refers to as institutionalized poverty born out of a failed social design.
If they come here and we offer something to come here to see what's going on, to see something different, you realize that's 3 or 4 generations of people in the same old area. You know what I mean? And they've been all their life. They haven't been anywhere else before.
They can stop the demolitions. La 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 la.
Byron Williams is talking about people in New Orleans who are protesting the demolition of some of the projects.
No, I've been here, I ain't heard a gunshot yet.
Byron is a native New Orleanian, grew up in the St. Bernard housing development. Now he lives here at East Lake in Atlanta. He's paying market rent in the mixed income community. And this is what he wants for St. Bernard, including the golf course.
Diversity is coming to New Orleans with golf. We right across the bayou, across the bayou. That'll be the Bayou District. You know? That's for our kids at St. Bernard. So our kids going to prosper between education and recreation and quality life.
Robbery, prostitution, killing.
Just a few years ago, the old East Lake was one of Atlanta's worst housing developments. The crime off the charts. The city, with a private partner, real estate magnate Tom Cousins, tore it down and built this. A charter school, Atlanta's first, and a YMCA are part of this grand master plan. Educational success, astounding. Only 5% of the children met state math standards 10 years ago. Today, nearly 80% are making the grade.
Got to go with quality of life, you know what I mean? And education is part of it. This is a component consists of education, recreation, and home ownership.
Crime has gone down dramatically in those areas where there used to be public housing, but now they're mixed income communities. And we have some prime examples here to show you where it really works.
Former New Orleans Police Superintendent Richard Pennington is now Atlanta's chief.
I remember when I was there as chief, the housing developments posed a problem for us in terms of violent crime.
For that very reason, Pennington says he supports the city's push to tear down the old public housing developments.
You know, originally I would have had concerns about tearing them all down. But since I've been in Atlanta and I see what has happened in Atlanta in terms of tearing down public housing and then rebuilding a new community with mixed income, and it's just really changed our community dramatically.
Pennington says look no further than this development called Centennial Place. It used to be Techwood, located near Georgia Tech. This is the country's first mixed-income community built 13 years ago. Before the transformation, Techwood was once the country's deadliest project. That's when all the buildings looked like this. It's now one of the safest, with neighboring property values nearing $1 million. Dr. Thomas Boston is a professor of economics at Georgia Tech. He's researched and written extensively on how low-income families fare once they leave the projects and are integrated in mainstream America.
What we found is an astounding difference in social mobility when they move away from those environments. They're more inclined to work, the kids perform better in school, there's less crime, they feel healthier. There's just all the kinds of things that we would come to expect associated with a better environment.
Calm it down! So why this? Why is it so tough to let go of what housing experts call concentrated poverty? Experts say this is what they've known all their lives. Here in Atlanta, Hope Bolden has an agency that prepares families for life after the projects. For instance, how to manage a budget, where to pay monthly bills, and finding a school and other life issues.
From the moment the families have moved, we stay with them. We continue to visit them wherever they've moved to, as long as it isn't outside of the state of Georgia.
There's still some visible reminders of the old projects in Atlanta. Behind me here is Bowen Homes. One public housing official says it's the poster child for all that is wrong with public housing. That's why it's slated for demolition in a year.
The rich white folks want to tear down public housing. And the resident who feel like, we as a people feel like we got to accept whatever people bring us.
Shirley Hightower is head of the Tenants Council at Bowen.
See, people want this dirt. They don't give a damn if we sleep under the bridge. They just want this land.
What we can't do is allow just a few to dictate the future of many.
Dr. Boston says surveys show most low-income families from New Orleans want change. Byron Williams stands with the majority.
This is going to save kids. This is going to change the crime element because it's not a real life anymore.
We should point out New Orleans is creating mixed-income communities. Fisher, St. Thomas, and the Gus developments have already been transformed. But what's missing are the recreational and educational aspects. The good news, Hanover officials say the new St. Bernard will have all those components, even the golf course. Liz?
Thanks a lot, Glenn. And in December, the New Orleans City Council approved taking down the B.W. Cooper, Lafitte, St. Bernard, and C.J. Pete. Demolition began on the C.J. Pete last week. The B.W. Cooper complex started coming down in December.